And now YouTube is actually recording.
Fantastic.
So far, I've only once lost an episode on here by forgetting to go live on YouTube.
Oh man, that must have been a bummer. How far in were you?
At the 40-minute mark, I noticed it still said offline.
Oh shit.
There was no going back.
Oh no.
But it was no big deal. Thankfully, the audio recording was solid. So,
Nice.
alrighty. Now, I will play the intro and we'll start the show.
Okay.
Tech, twice weekly, episode number 19. Welcome to Tech Twice Weekly for October 6th, 2014. This is your source for technology news and discussion every Monday and Thursday. I'm your host, Ben White, and today I'm joined by my good friend and coworker, Andy Lee. How's it going, man?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for having me hop on.
Yeah, no, thank you for covering last minute. My normal co-host Eric is out. He just moved into a new house and
Oh.
doesn't have internet yet.
Problematic.
Yeah, apparently he's going to be down until Sunday, I think. So I guess he's coffee shopping it up right now.
Oh man. Yeah, well, weekend. Oh well, week just started, so he's got a little while. Oh dear.
Yeah, it might be good for him to unplug for a little bit.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't think he's going to listen to the show anyway, so we can badmouth him all we want.
Awesome.
Well, I'm glad you joined me. It's awesome having somebody else to co-host, so the guests, or the listeners, I should say, don't have to listen to me ramble on to myself for 45 minutes.
Good times. I'll try to be entertaining at the very least.
I appreciate the effort. All right, well, let's jump into our top stories then. So, okay, everyone who is a Redbox Instant user, raise your hand. All right. Now, I'm sorry to break this to the three of you out there, but October 7th is the last day for the service. GigaOM is passing along the news that after a year and a half of operation, the Redbox Instant Streaming service is ending. The service was a partnership with Verizon and was intended to be a competitor with Netflix and Hulu, but just never really got the traction in the marketplace. Did you ever try out anything from Redbox streaming, Andy?
No, that's just it. I mean, I knew it was there, but it came out so long after I was already established with all the services I would use, I never felt the need to even check them out. I mean, by the time I got interested in looking at movies again with my Amazon Prime account, you have Prime Video, you have all these different services already streaming to these already established devices through their own applications. Why would you look at another one? Just didn't seem like a good idea.
Yeah, no, I think that is the whole thing. They came to the marketplace late. They didn't have a whole lot to offer. Their catalog was much, much smaller than Netflix, and there just wasn't any reason for anyone to sign up. Most of the Redbox market were people who don't have internet in the first place. That's why their DVD kiosk is so popular. So, yeah, I think it was just kind of a mismatch for their audience from the start.
I'd have to agree with you wholeheartedly. It's like I've always seen lines for those kiosks in front of McDonald's or Safeways, Fred Meyer's. You see them everywhere, and those are still getting used, even though there's lots of streaming available. Again, it's just the target market is wrong when it comes to streaming services. I mean, between streaming services and anybody that knows how to get their content elsewhere, either from YouTube or shows like this, for example, there's plenty of content out there that you don't have to pay for as well. So, why pay for something that you can get better elsewhere for the same price?
Definitely true. Consumers vote with their dollars, and in this case, Redbox Instant just didn't take off.
Well, I don't think that many people will miss it anyway.
I think that, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's shown right here.
Yeah.
Well, IT World is covering reports that Samsung is in merger talks again with Nuance Communications, the company behind Dragon Naturally Speaking software, after previously discussing mergers back in June. Nuance also owns SRI International Research Lab, the very same research lab that spun out their digital assistant product into Siri Inc., which was then purchased by Apple in 2010. However, what makes this news interesting is the fact that Nuance is providing the voice recognition software behind Siri, and that voice recognition software was not part of Siri Inc., which was sold to Apple. This means that should Nuance and Samsung work out a merger arrangement, they could potentially prevent Apple from being able to use the voice recognition software that runs behind Siri. And without that voice recognition software, Siri is going to be kind of useless. Apple technically could attempt to outbid Samsung for Nuance. However, Nuance's market cap currently is at $4.8 billion. And buying the company means also buying all their other lines of business, such as healthcare and imaging. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And I'll be sure to keep tabs on it as the story develops and follow up on this one. Ars Technica passes along the Wall Street Journal report that HP will be splitting themselves into two separate companies, one focusing on the consumer market and the other focusing on the enterprise market. PCs and printers will fall under the consumer umbrella, while corporate hardware and services will go to the enterprise division. These companies are intended to be run separately and independently with their own separate management, and even to the point of being traded independently on the stock exchange. According to the Wall Street Journal, they're also being pretty quick about the split too, saying it could happen as soon as today, or at least filing to make the split happen could happen as soon as today. What do you think about this? Last week we heard about actually, last Thursday we heard about PayPal and eBay splitting. Now HP splitting into two.
Well, I felt like it was kind of one of those things that was a matter of time because HP has been one of those companies that, while they have a couple areas where they specialize really well product-wise, their breadth of products was so broad. How can any one company can manage all that? Is a thing. The split that they're talking about makes total sense, mainly because their consumer products are the ones that are the more accessible products in terms of consumer electronics, so they should keep going in that route. And the enterprise products, they're just a little bit too much competition for the products they're trying to get into as well, I guess, is kind of what I'm trying to get at. So they really should focus on something and specialize. And I feel like other large companies are going to do the same eventually as they start losing steam in certain markets.
Yeah, that's a good point. HP's desktop business has been dwindling as PC sales have been down, and as far as I understand, when it comes to the enterprise side of business, Dell's pretty much been eating HP's lunch in that market. And so you're right. I think this is what they need to do to stay in business, to stay on top of their game, and hopefully it frees up resources when you're not having to split them between maintaining two entirely separate product lines. Each company can dedicate itself to what it's good at.
Indeed. Yeah, I think they're just sort of married to their old success in the enterprise market, because before Dell came along, it really was just HP in terms of enterprise hardware, as far as I know. So, and that versus IBM, which is really I guess, when's the last time you really seen anybody with an IBM machine as well? So, older generations, just time for them to move on.
Definitely. TechCrunch is reporting on falling Bitcoin prices. It appears there was a large sell-off last weekend, resulting in the market floor dropping below $300. This is on the heels of the price falling below $400 just 2 weeks ago. Currently, the price of Bitcoin has bounced back to just slightly to around $335, With all this recent fall in the price of Bitcoin, it will be interesting to see how the marketplace reacts, as recently retailers have been showing a growing interest in supporting Bitcoin, including PayPal's announcement of plans to support it. While Microsoft may not be bringing in a lot of money from their Windows Phone venture, they are still capitalizing on the smartphone boom. Digital Trends reports that Microsoft brought in over $1 billion in Android licensing fees from Samsung, a figure which recently became public during a Microsoft and Samsung court case over patent agreements. According to the terms of the agreement, Samsung has agreed to pay a fee to Microsoft for every Android device they sell. Under the agreement, Microsoft is currently claiming $6.9 million earned from interest payments paid by Samsung. The days of Microsoft skimming a little off the top of Samsung may soon be over, though, if Samsung gets their way in court, where they are claiming their original agreement with Microsoft is no longer valid following Microsoft's purchase of Nokia. I know you're an Android user, Andy. What do you think about this?
Well, I think it was kind of a matter of time, really, and especially for Microsoft. They've always had a tendency of trying to get into markets where they were not terribly prepared to dive into fully in terms of making a product accessible, inexpensive, and easy to use for everyone, such as their first attempts at a tablet as well that got quickly overlooked by Samsung and Apple and everyone else. So I'm really interested to see how much money they'll throw at this problem, I guess, because with the recent purchase of Minecraft as well, I mean, there's so much money being thrown around right now from that one company. It's definitely going to be interesting to watch, especially if they ever want to get into the mobile market, which is obviously the most relevant one these days.
Well, and plus, it's kind of interesting to see Microsoft throwing so much money around, given the fact that at the same time, they're also going through massive layoffs within the company, record layoffs for the company, including overseas layoffs and a large number of employees being laid off from their Washington, Redmond offices as well.
Wow, what's more of that?
Yeah. So
it makes me wonder if it's one of those large companies that need to break down and focus into smaller markets that they can specialize in.
It's true. I know there's been a lot of talk of Microsoft spinning out Xbox, spinning out phone, and in this era, this as far as technology goes, it seems to be the behemoth that is Microsoft might just be too large to manage as one entity.
Yeah, makes sense, and it might be more profitable if they can actually focus in different areas that they can really specialize in. I mean, the Xbox is a very viable platform that's extremely popular still, even with having large competition coming up along the way. So I'd be really interested to see what they would do if they specialized a bit more instead of having the behemoth approach that they've always had, trying to make everything connect together and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly, yeah, and perhaps some internal competition would do them well too. It wouldn't hurt to have Microsoft PC gaming try and compete for business with Microsoft Xbox, and see, competition ends up bringing out the best sometimes.
Is that still a thing? Jokingly, Microsoft PC gaming. When's the last relevant actual game franchise can you think of from Microsoft?
That's fair. I mean, to be honest, the last title I remember seeing, and I didn't see a booth for it at PAX, was Microsoft's Age of Empires online gaming.
Oh, I did catch that. No, that's fair.
Granted, it's a Facebook game, basically. It's not a real game. It's not on Steam. It's not...
Definition of a game, there's stuff... That's a totally other topic for another day.
It really is. But there's something out there. They've still got a development shop of some kind behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Android Central is covering a leaked Sprint internal newsletter indicating plans to shut down their WiMAX network on November 6th. 2015. This confirms Sprint's earlier announcement back in April when they said the WiMAX network would be taken offline sometime before the end of 2015. According to the newsletter, notifications of the pending closure will be sent 180 days prior to all prepaid customers with devices still registered on the network. The notices will also include no or low-cost comparable devices to help customers switch to a device on the 4G LTE or Spark networks. This news comes at the same time as Sprint announces layoffs within the company. Last Friday, Sprint said they would be working to reduce costs by laying off an unspecified number of management and non-management jobs by the end of the month. The times at Twitch are a-changin', and that is to say that Twitch announced in a recent blog post that they will be implementing transparency in sponsored content and promotion. As reported by Ars Technica, this new policy is an effort by Twitch to bring a new level of disclosure to their service. The new Twitch guidelines require streamers to clearly identify content from sponsors to their viewers in both text and graphics. They also forbid advertisers from influencing a streamer by requiring positive reviews or keeping them from giving negative reviews. Droid Life has noticed a new card appearing in Google Now. According to their report, Google has begun showing a card reminding people in Pennsylvania to register to vote. The new card has a picture of a ballot box along with providing the deadline for voter registration. It gives links as well to where you can register to vote and to check your current registration status. Based on early user reports, it appears the card is appearing based on user location and not political search history. Has the charm and novelty of your smartwatch worn off? If so, Ars Technica has discovered the cure. They're reporting on young Corbin Davenport, a 16-year-old self-described web developer and writer who has figured out how to run Windows 95 on the Samsung Gear smartwatch. He pulled off this incredible feat thanks to the Android DOS emulator, a DOSBox. That being said, while it's a neat trick, Corbin was quick to demonstrate in his YouTube video showing off the project that it doesn't quite run perfectly and quickly runs out of memory, despite the watch having an impressive, by Windows 95 standards, 512 megabytes of RAM. Corbin isn't just a one-trick pony, though. He's also managed to get the Android version of Doom running on the smartwatch, as well as Minecraft Pocket Edition. What do you think about this, Andy? I mean, the idea of running these is ridiculous, and he admits that, but it's still a clever hack.
I kind of want one is the thing. It's it brings up the interesting question of, are we starting to get into the market of customizable wearable technology? Because think about the transition of, okay, maybe you're too young for this and my age is showing here, but when PCs finally became cheap enough to build on your own for basically like a teenager, just to be able to go and get some parts and put together for the first time, that was a really enriching sort of breaking point in my introduction to technology in general. This is just sort of like the next generation of that. So what's next? People are going to have like these decked out pieces of clothing that's going to have all these different monitors with OSs running on them. I mean, it's just the whole steampunk or the whole extra uber tech future's kind of here. I mean, there's nothing really stopping us from putting whatever we want together, which is fascinating, scary. I don't know. What you think this is going to pick up? More people customizing wearable tech like that?
I certainly hope so. I think I love the fact that this is a 16-year-old doing this, because when I was 16, I was definitely not working on hacking any form of technology. I mean, I was impressed with myself writing a web page.
Hey, me too. I was happy playing Diablo 2 at the age of 16 on the LAN for the first time.
Right. Exactly. And I think that this kid, he's in high school, assuming, and here he is hacking a device that not only is impressive in its own right, but then manages to get his YouTube videos picked up by Ars Technica and many other news publications across the internet. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment for someone, and he deserves every bit of credit he's getting.
Yeah, totally. It just makes you kind of wish we had access to those sort of things when we were kids too, you know? Those
Right? Back in my day.
whippersnappers in your internet and all your answers out there in front of you. Ah,
Right? And here I thought I was a hot shot replacing my video card and upgrading my RAM.
yeah. The newest 512 stick, the highest capacity that they got. Yeah.
Right. I'll never
Yeah.
forget that when my dad came home with a 500 megabyte hard drive, and you'll never fill this up. This is the biggest hard drive you'll ever need, and I have one single file that's many single files that are larger than 500 megabytes.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes you wonder if kids will ever understand where, I guess, what I'm curious about is 16-year-olds these days, if they understand how far technology has progressed in even just the last decade. Just the capacity and the speeds that we've been achieving just over the last 10 years is kind of astounding. It's only accelerated and it just hasn't stopped.
Right, and that's a really good point. I mean, we were walking into kind of the birth of personal computers and desktops being something you could actually build at home, and now here, the entry-level platform for these kids is hacking a smartwatch.
Nothing's safe anymore. Nothing's safe. Kudos to Corbin. Good on you. That's a good achievement.
Definitely, yeah. I'm jealous to say the least. All right. Well, that does it for our top stories tonight. So let's move on to our tech toys you wish you could buy. Starting us off, I've got the Kickstarter for the project Matchstick. This is a project that is intending to develop a streaming stick very similar to the what is it?
The Chromecast?
Yeah, the Chromecast. And then Microsoft recently came out with a Miracast dongle as well. And the Matchstick is an attempt to build a similar device using Firefox OS. The device connects over HDMI right to the back of your television or monitor. And interestingly, the Matchstick doesn't require an external USB connection for power like the Chromecast dongle currently does. And the concept, though, is really the same. If you're familiar with Chromecast, you're familiar with the functionality that Firefox OS wants to offer. But the main selling point difference that the attraction that the Matchstick is trying to offer with Firefox OS is an open hardware and software platform. The OS is open source, and they're open sourcing the specifications of the hardware included in the device as well. It's going to ship with a dual-core Rockchip processor. I believe that's a little ARM processor with 4 gigabytes of onboard storage and 1 gigabyte of embedded DDR3 RAM. So there's quite a lot of horsepower under the hood for this device that's about the size of maybe a pair of AA batteries from the looks of things.
Yeah, it's tiny. Well, someone get Corbin one of these guys, because I was just looking at the Kickstarter and all the dev kits are gone. Every single one of them. And there's so many other open options there. So it just goes to show you, people want to hack on this stuff. They are
Right.
interested in hacking their own technology. It's kind of a interesting shift, I guess, in consuming electronics. It's not in a pretty package for you anymore. It's more of it's a sandbox, or it's a toolkit. You can do whatever you want with it now, and I'm really excited to see what people are going to come up with, because the options are limitless at this point.
Definitely, and I think the fact that instead there was a time where it felt like all these development companies were giving answers. They were giving software and hardware solutions to everything, and now it seems like the transition has been more to giving tools. So you don't necessarily, we don't necessarily produce the answer to your problem, but here's a tool set that will let you solve the problem on your own.
And I still feel like there's always going to be that provider of that straight out of the box solution, Apple, cough cough, that's always pretty in a nice package that has gone through the corporate filter that is going to be a prescribed happy thing for you to play with. I'm excited to see finally the open option, just sort of the PC to the Apple, so to speak, in terms of portable gear that people can really play with. And I'm not surprised to see all the developer units gone right away. I'd be curious to see other competitors come out because Firefox OS was an obvious one. Is Ubuntu, is that other OS community going to hop in on this as well? Or is there any other large corporate company going to try to hop in on this as well and probably fail partway through because it's getting too late like everybody else? So,
Well, the other big question I'd have is, being that this is open source, how quickly is it going to come out and somebody's going to find a way to format it to do other things? Either put Debian or put Ubuntu on there, or Ubuntu OS on there, given that these mobile platforms are so readily available now.
Well, maybe they should just expect that, really, because that's kind of the impression I'm getting from this product is just play with it, do whatever you want with it, and that's refreshing. Instead of having something fed to you, you get to play with something instead. But obviously, the learning curve is a little higher, though, for people wanting to play with this.
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of a learning curve, and this project is going to be successful. I should say its original goal was $100,000. It's at $323,882, and it still has 23 days to go.
That's 1 week, 300. Wow.
Yeah, that tells you something right there. I mean, if you're interested in getting in on this, it's $18 to jump in on one matchstick. They say the retail price will be $25, and they're looking for an estimated delivery of February next year. So that sounds pretty solid if they're able to actually meet that deadline.
Well, even at the retail price at $25, that's still cheaper than any other option out there that I can think of as well. What the Chromecast is, what, $40, $35? Off the top of your head?
If I remember right, yeah.
Yeah, so that's extremely competitive for something with more functionality for those that know how to use it. So this is going to be a competitor, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think given its open platform, I think there's definitely a niche market for something like this. And I just jumped in and backed it at $18. I figure for the potential it offers and for being able to have one that I can play with, especially while I don't intend to necessarily develop on it, I'd love to have the opportunity to take advantage of what the development community creates and play with their toys.
Yeah. Do you have any idea in terms of distribution of said apps? Because they don't really go much into. Well, I guess they do kind of in the Mozilla App Store. So I guess what I'm curious about is how accessible is the Mozilla App Store versus getting to Android or any of the other ones out there.
That's a good point. It doesn't talk a lot here about how to get into the App Store. I know there's the developer portal they link to, and they mention about no limits on what you can create with custom overlays for streaming video or music visualizer wallpaper, using it for kiosks and things. So I suppose if you get in on the developer side and you get into the developer portal, I'm sure there's probably more information about that there. But I'm guessing this is going to be a rather open marketplace, maybe just vetting apps for pure compatibility. But I also assume that there's going to be an easy option to sideload outside of the App Store as well.
Yeah. Well, cool. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. The second product I have here is a kind of a more interesting one in a certain sense. It's called Hook, and it's a wireless 3D headset. It uses Bluetooth to connect to other devices, but what makes it different from just your traditional or behind the neck headset is that it actually has a microphone set up to capture 3D audio. So while you're wearing the device using their application, you can record the audio around you in 360 degrees. This is kind of interesting to me. I've always been a fan of the concept of binaural audio recording, where you can actually hear, directionally where sound is coming from.
Mhm.
We're so used to stereo sound, where you get left and right channel, and that's pretty flat in the scheme of things. And even the best home setups are close to 7.1, so you're getting 7 directions, but you're still getting true 360 degree sound.
Yeah, I feel like hearing is believing, though, because that's a pretty tall claim, especially given the sort of prototype of the design that they have here as well. It's not a lot of hardware, obviously. It looks like it's a very small profile. Obviously, it's for comfort and aesthetics and all that good stuff. But when we're talking about recording, I mean, look at the size of the microphone you have in front of you. Getting something of that kind of quality is no easy feat in a really small profile. So
Yeah,
I'm
no,
curious.
that's definitely true. And let me see if I can get their video to play here, because they do a demonstration using the device and recording with it. Let's see if we can capture this here.
This is what it sounds like when you capture audio on your mobile device or your digital camera. Notice that when I walk around, the sound is flat and two-dimensional. You can't sense where I am. And it doesn't feel like you're here listening to me walk around. Now,
And what you're hearing there is the founder of the project. He's walking around, a gentleman holding a smartphone to record the video, and then wearing a pair of the Hook earbuds, or I should say headset. And so now he's going to first he walked around with his traditional stereo recording, and now he's going to turn on the 3D audio recording that their device provides.
this is 3D audio captured with Hook. Now, if you notice, when I move around you, you'll be able to sense where I am and follow my voice spatially as I walk around you, as if you were here listening to me move around you.
So you can kind of get a sense for what they're going for there. I don't know how well that came across on the recording, but if you have a chance, it's a really interesting video to watch.
Yeah, and cool demonstration, but it's still just that. It's a demonstration. Only hearing is believing, and seeing is believing. It's and if we look at the price point, it's not exactly the cheapest product to get into. I mean, obviously, 3D recording and audible headsets, none out there. How can you set a price on that? But I typically don't spend more than 30, 40, 50 bucks on a pair of headsets. You need to spend $90 to get a pair of these.
Yeah, and I think you're definitely marketing to a very niche market here. I mean, it's not like you're going to be listening to the latest album from your favorite band in 3D audio. And while I really, really love the concept, I can't think of a single situation where I would want to record the audio in 3D and actually listen to it back, other than just for fun. That novelty effect.
Oh, there's, I'm sure, of all kinds of unseemly uses for this sort of technology in certain markets, which I won't talk about here, but there are all kinds of uses for 3D recording. It's just, you make a valid point. The amount of content that's out there, there just isn't enough in order to warrant something like that, unless all of a sudden every single concert that gets recorded is recorded in 3D sound, and you can listen to it like you're part of the audience or some junk like that. There's just not enough out there to warrant wanting to own a pair like these yet, in my opinion. Soon, but not quite yet.
Yeah, and they try and make that point. They show someone saying, they're recording at a concert, and I appreciate what they're trying to say and what they're getting at, but we've all been to concerts. If you try to turn on a microphone at a concert to record something, you're not going to get the show. You're going to get blown out audio, and you're going to pick up crowd noise.
So that's why I'm saying, you know, that's a very clear-cut demonstration of one person following one sound source, walking around them in a very closed area sort of thing. You know, functionally, I think it's going to be very limited. I mean, if they play more into their other options, such as, I'm looking further down the features, their ability to sort of metadata track where you're doing these sort of recordings, that's a little bit more useful to me. Like, when did I have this conversation with this one person I was just walking down the street with? Like, when did I have that? Where did I have that? That might be kind of cool to have, if that's something that you have on your person at all times. But, you know, that's getting a little Big Brother-esque, in my opinion, in terms of use of that technology, but I think they should be focusing more on that, I guess, until there's more of a demand for 3D audio. I mean,
yeah, no, I think you're right. Although it'll be interesting to see how this Kickstarter goes. I mean, they did have an update here that on their first day of funding, they raised $22,000. They think they're doing a 30-day campaign. They've got 23 days left to go, and they're at just over $45,000 right now. But they're looking at a $100,000 goal, which is nothing to sneeze at.
But I mean, if we just look at the previous Kickstarter we were just talking about, 7 days, $300,000, and you can obviously see what the public is interested in. Yeah, there are a couple audio files out there, but there aren't enough. 440, in fact, based on this Kickstarter. So it's going to be a tough one. I don't know if this one's going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, this is something where my gut tells me that if I was given the right circumstances and I had the ability to put a pair on, I would probably fall in love with them. But without being able to experience that, I don't feel like I can put my money into something like this.
Indeed. It's a tough Kickstarter that has very finite sort of needs, I guess, in order to make it worthwhile to spend that kind of money on it. I mean, that 3D audio has to be spot on in really noisy situations and still produce the kind of quality of noise that I'm looking for. And that's a tall order.
Yeah, definitely. So, I don't know. I'll keep an eye on this. I've got it set to remind me in the last 24 hours of the campaign. We'll come back.
I'm going to throw $90 down because actually you have to spend $120 now, don't you? In order to actually get a pair? Oh, it's $99.
Yeah, right now you can still buy in at the early bird price. I guess it's not early bird price. The early bird.
The semi-early bird.
Yeah.
Well, you're not the super early bird. You're the early bird.
It looks like, I guess even the cheapest was only $89, so it's only a $10 bump from the original.
That's too much money for earphones. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, these have to be really impressive earphones. And I like that they offer Bluetooth connectivity. They also offer a hardline connectivity for devices that don't have Bluetooth.
Well, that's pretty standard these days, still, wouldn't you say? I mean, for any new emerging, hey, this is the hot stuff earphones.
Bluetooth is. I'm not sure about having the option to go wired. That's the part that intrigues me, because if these work as well as advertised, and that has to be a big if, I could see using something like this as a really nice in-ear monitor for podcasting and the such, to get rid of the big over-the-ear headphones and just have a cleaner profile. But there's a lot of other ways to go about doing that. And again, I'm now looking at this as a headset and not about the whole 3D audio purpose, which is its original differentiating factor from other headsets to start with.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Well, we'll see. We'll see. If it shows up for sale at an electronics store somewhere, I might check them out. If someone has a pair, I might check them out. I'm not dropping $100 on this.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too. But that being said, if you as a listener, if this sounds like something that's interesting to you, if this is something you're passionate about and you want to put your money down on this campaign, let us know. I'd love to hear from somebody who, especially if you have a good real life purpose for 3D audio. If there's some circumstance where you really see an application for this that maybe we're overlooking or just not thinking of, I'd love to hear about it. Tweet us at Tech Twice Weekly or email feedback at Tech Twice Weekly. Because I think if I could hear the right set of circumstances that would come about on more than a one-off situation, I could be easily sold on these. I just can't come up with something to make the price tag line up with the features being offered. Well, the last product I want to cover, and this is almost more of a gag, but it's the iPhone 6. Now, the iPhone 6 is out for sale. We all saw the Apple announcement. But what's recently showed up on eBay is an iPhone 6 prototype. And no one's really saying where this comes from or necessarily vetting that it's actually even legitimate, although it does look different from the official iPhone 6. The ad is it's just over now. It ended just a few hours ago today, starting at $1,000. Let's see. Oh, actually, I should correct that. It looks like, pulling up the ad, eBay has pulled the auction. At the time of this article from Tweaktown, the bids were up to $58,000, but right now eBay has pulled the auction.
Yikes.
So either it was legitimate, and they pulled it because the person doesn't actually have the rights to sell a prototype iPhone, or it was fraudulent and they pulled it because it was a hoax.
I think the second one was probably what it really was. Apple realized, oh, this probably shouldn't be out there, and just immediately pulled the plug on that. But I find it kind of interesting that who would spend that kind of money on a prototype like that? For what purpose, other than for novelty?
Yeah, no, I think that it's entirely novelty, and I think when things start getting attention like this auction did, there comes a point where people start bidding just to say they bid on it. They have no intention of actually following through and pay for it.
That's an awful big bidding point, though, just to say you bid on it when it reaches 50,000. I mean, who's just saying I'm going to put down 50,000 to say I bid on it?
Well, I mean, considering you can sign up for eBay with very little verification, and you don't have to have any funds to back your bid because they don't charge you until the auction closes. So if you're running under the assumption that eBay is probably going to pull this, or that someone's going to outbid you because everyone's bidding for fun, you can get that moment to take that quick screenshot showing you as the top bidder.
I feel like that'd be like all over Reddit or something at this point, if that was really the point of it, though. Like, there'd be some Uber thread on there right now where people are just like, I bid on the iPhone prototype. You don't see that anywhere, though. So, why? Are there that many people with that deep wallets just kind of going, hey, that's cool and shiny, I want to throw money at it?
Probably.
I mean, depressing. I'm sorry. That's a lot of money.
In the tech giant world we have, it wouldn't surprise me to see some of the tech moguls out there blow in some cash just to have something that nobody else has. Assuming it's legitimate, assuming this is verified. But my guess is Apple Legal probably reached out to eBay and said, hey, this needs to go.
Yeah. Well, cool, fine. That's very entertaining.
Well, like I said, that was interesting, but realistically not a tech toy you can buy. But that moves us into our discussion for tonight. We've got two topics to consider here. One is about a teenager that spends more than $46,000 in a free-to-play game. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Our second topic is a year after the death of Silk Road, Silk Road being the underground marketplace associated with Bitcoin and the Onion router that became popular dark markets are still booming. Sales on the underground marketplace are larger than ever. It'll be interesting to see if the currency changes, considering the price of Bitcoin is dropping so much lately. But the market's still there. Shutting down Silk Road did nothing to stop underground drug and other nefarious sales.
That should surprise nobody.
Right.
Nobody. It's people always find a way to get the things that they want, no matter how nefarious they may be. I'm more interested in this kid that spent $46,000 in a game. I mean, the first question I haven't read the whole article, but what kind of game allows those kind of transactions? I mean, it has to go through somebody's credit card, right? Yeah. And they must have hit a credit limit at some point when they're going through these things, unless it's some guy with really deep wallets. But that's silly.
Because according to the news article from Digital Trends, the kid was playing the game Game of War Fire Age, and he's in Belgium, and he racked up a credit card bill of 37,000 euros. And the game's an online strategy game, and he used his grandfather's credit card to purchase in-game gold to improve his performance in the game. And so I guess he just continually bought these large value collections of gold and spent them in-game.
Okay, but let me ask you this. You have a couple free-to-play games. We all have a couple free-to-play games on our phones, right? What is the largest single purchase you can make on any of those games you've ever played?
Easily $100.
Sure, but that's 100. So this kid had to have done this 460 times in order to get to that point. Think about that. So talk about no supervision. I mean, this kid needs to have his phone removed from his body. It's
right. I think really what it comes down to is lack of supervision. According to the story, the kid got the credit card. He was given the card by his father to add to his iTunes account to purchase some books. He had originally wanted through iTunes. Well, later, once that credit card was added to the kid's iTunes account, he picked up his phone, noticed that, hey, look at that. The card that was on iTunes is now associated with my iPhone, and then proceeded to buy gold to his heart's content.
Yikes. Well, it says here it took several months later, so oddly enough, the mother claims she didn't know that her son was making the purchases until a few months later. See, this is one of those sort of skeezy business practices I feel like needs to be addressed more than anything else. It's, if you're going to give kids, or anybody really, full reign access to just spend as much money as they possibly can on little trivial things that they don't really think much about, gold, XP, whatever bonuses for a little while, you ought to have a way of capping that. Personally, like I'm only going to spend so much per year. I haven't seen that anywhere. There's no limits to that, so it's kind of dangerous for anybody that isn't paying close attention to what they're doing.
Yeah, and I mean, according to the story, the teen claimed he wasn't aware that purchases were being made through the credit card.
Yeah, that's a lie.
Exactly. I mean, I've been a kid. No, I don't know how the chair got broken while we were running.
That I fell on. Yeah.
Right? I mean, I played free-to-play games, and even the worst of them are distinctly clear on you are making a purchase.
Yeah.
This costs dollars. This costs euros, and this is what you're getting for this transaction. Even the scammiest of the titles make it clear because they have to go through the provider, either Google or Apple's purchase platform, and that's a standardized process. It's not like they can independently hide the transaction. There's some standardization there.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, the closing bit on this article about how Apple may refund the hefty cost of the purchases for a bunch of people of $32 million worth of these surcharges. Yeah, it makes you wonder, maybe Apple should monitor that a little bit more closely so they don't have to deal with this rigmarole, the whole capping on certain types of purchases. I mean, I feel like that wouldn't be terribly hard to do to make available.
No, exactly. And I mean, I think it'd be easy enough. You have parental controls already available for iTunes accounts, where you can limit the content your child has access to, so they don't get into R-rated movies, let's say. Well, how hard would it be to implement a similar feature where the account has a spending limit? This account can only spend $100, and if this account spends over $100 in a 24-hour period, I get an email alerting me that this transaction has happened.
Mm-hmm. Well, why don't they take the same model as Steam has? Steam has a wallet system where you don't have to save a card on file. You can pre-purchase a certain amount of currency for the store that you're going to spend money on. You know, Apple can easily do the same thing if they don't already. I'm sorry, I don't own Apple products. I don't know if they have one, but makes sense.
For a wallet service, you can deposit money into your Apple account, but there comes in the point of parental responsibility.
There you go.
Parents have to take more ownership than just handing the card to the kid. They actually have to log in and make the purchase, give them X amount of dollars, be responsible for their child's actions.
If that's the case, if they already do have a wallet system like that, Apple shouldn't have to pay for that. I'm sorry. It's not giving your kid a credit card with absolutely no authentication needs in any manner or fashion to this incredibly large digital store. I mean, even if you restrict R-rated content, whatever, there's still a lot of things that they can spend money on, not just in-game stuff. Just seemed like a bad idea to start with.
Right. I don't know. It bothers me, the idea that Apple might have to refund the payments, because it's not Apple's fault. There has to be a level of accountability and ownership that these people are held to, and I feel bad. I understand these people probably don't have a spare $46,000 hanging around. It was on a credit card after all, but sometimes it's an expensive lesson that you need to learn as a parent, to be aware of what your child is doing.
Yeah, but that takes effort.
If they smashed a car, you wouldn't get out of it. You'd be responsible as the parent.
Yeah.
I don't really see why this should be different.
It's because it's not tangible, is why. I couldn't see it, so it's not my fault.
Right. And I guess that's what it comes down to, is we're just now coming into the age of digital parents, where the parents are people who've grown up on this digital economy, and in a couple of years, maybe this will be less common, and won't be a story as much. But it probably definitely comes down to an older generation of parents not quite completely understanding the power of the technology they're letting their kid play with.
Yeah, well, just don't hand your kid an internet-accessible device is probably the best advice you can give if you want to make sure they don't spend stuff.
Right. Hard concept, but you're giving your kid connection to the internet, and now you've given your kid a credit card. This will not end well.
The opportunities are limitless. And everybody wants your kids' money.
Adults can barely be responsible on the internet with credit cards. I mean, this is a kid.
Well, I mean, look at the iPhone 6 prototype bids. That's an example right there.
Yes, that is a perfect example of irresponsible adults.
Oh well. Being responsible is kind of boring, though.
All right. Well, that about does it for our show tonight. Thank you again for joining me on such short notice.
Hey, no worries. I had a lot of fun.
Well, we'll definitely have to have you come back sometime, pick up another episode here or there. Is there anything you'd want to share with our listeners before we get out of here? Any projects you're working on or anything like that?
projects is just sort of in the works. I mean, me and Erectorus are known on this show, or do I know you as
Other actor online.
Okay, gotcha. So me and Reactor were talking about putting together a show focused on indie games, sort of like a spotlight of sorts, maybe games that people haven't heard about, and that's sort of the little cave that I live in. I like to discover things that people haven't discovered yet, so we may put something together to talk about that. If there's any interest, let Reactor know, let us know, and we can get into that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm at Aractor on Twitter, Aractor, and if you guys out there would be interested in something like that, I'd love to hear the feedback. It's a side project that Andy and I are working on, and hopefully to soon be a reality. But we gotta have a few beer nights and work out some details and get everything straightened out. But it will be coming to life soon, hopefully. So. I guess that being said, the only other thing I wanted to mention before we close out for tonight is I just want to give a shout out to my wife. Tonight is my 2-year anniversary.
Yay!
I got married to a wonderful, beautiful woman 2 years ago, and she had to work late tonight, so we aren't really celebrating formally tonight. I think we're going to figure out a way to go out and have a nice dinner tomorrow night or something, but just wanted to take a moment and give her a shout out on the show.
Oh, that's so sweet of you.
Oh, big softy, what can I say? All right, well, I guess that closes us out for tonight. We'll be back on Thursday. More tech news, follow up on whatever's big for then. Otherwise, hit us up. TechTwiceWeekly.com is the website. You could subscribe there. You can also find us on Twitter, as I've said, at TechTwiceWeekly, or we're also on YouTube, Stitcher, Blueberry, all the common podcast networks. If we're not on your favorite podcast network, shoot me an email, feedback@TechTwiceWeekly.com. I'd love to get the show out there. So, with that being said, for Andy, I'm Ben. Have a good night, everybody.